Hello and welcome to the introduction video for our first practice with charcoal. We are going to be working with a couple different tools today. We are working with our black charcoal pencil, and if you haven't taken the time to sharpen these, you are going to do so on the shorter side of the sharpener. So there's a taller side and a shorter side. We want to use the shorter side, and when you turn, be so slow when you turn these so that you don't end up breaking the lead. If you use the tall side, you're gonna have too much charcoal extended out without the wood encasing it, and it will most likely break. So it's important to start with it sharpened on the short side. Next, we are working with a blending stump, and this is basically just compressed paper that we can use to help blend out values. Now, occasionally this will get dirty, and you have a couple of options. You can clean it in the blending stump cleaning area, or there's this little handy sanding tool. And when you sand this, you can just use this side angle to help maintain that nice point. The last two things I'll show you before we begin are the two eraser types that we've got. We have a sharp edge eraser and what's called a kneaded eraser. Now, if you're looking to get a nice crisp line erased, the sharp eraser is your best bet, but if you're looking to lighten a value, in a patch of value, I would recommend spreading out your kneaded eraser, just kind of like wrapping it around your finger, and you can just pick up small patches of value rather than an individual line. Now, we are going to complete this practice as a follow along. So I would like for you to have this charcoal practice page out with me. We're gonna pick up our black charcoal pencil and we're gonna begin together. Now, we are going to start on what's called a stepped value scale. That means we can see the lines that are dividing these values. We also have a sliding scale underneath. Now, what I'm going to do, because my blending stump is new, I don't have any charcoal on it. So this is a really cool thing because blending stumps don't have any lead inside of them. I think of them more as like a paintbrush almost, because I am going to load my blending stump with some charcoal. So I added some in this blank space for the blending stump cleaning area. So go ahead and do this with me. We're gonna take our charcoal pencil, add just a light, or I guess a medium patch of charcoal. We're gonna pick some up with our blending stump and we're gonna play around with that. So you can see that the more pressure you put on it, the more you try to collect, the darker it becomes when you use it. Now we can clean this off by just swirling it around until it stops having so much pigment. And because we don't have anything, no lead inside of this, it is truly just like wiping it off so that we can use it. And although it looks dirty, it is actually now pretty darn clean. So what we're going to do is we're gonna hop back up to that patch. We're gonna grab some more of that. We're gonna check and see where we're at, and we want it to be a nice light value. Now, we are going to hop up to our number 1. Do not add this in 0 because 0 is saved for white. Now we're gonna come into number 1 and we're adding this light value, and I like to kind of squint my eyes, so I put my eyelashes down in front of my eyeballs, and I know that seems kind of embarrassing, but it is the actual way that I check my work. So I recommend you try it, and what we're doing is looking at the top square compared to the square that we're filling in, and we want to see if they look about the same. Now we are going to just continue working all the way out to value 3, and I'm picking up more of that charcoal because it was starting to get a little bit too light. So I'm adding in more of that charcoal, and if I finish halfway and don't have enough to fill, I'll just go back and grab some more. And we want this to be nice and even all the way through and to go all the way up to the edges of your box. So take a moment and make sure that the edges of your box are filled in. Squint your eyes and see if you are a little too dark in any areas. Now, while you're checking yours, I'm going to show you how to fix it if you did go a little dark. I went a little dark on value 3 so that you can see how to fix it. So I am going to just have you pause right now. I want you to take a look up at the board, and I want you to see, I'm gonna wrap my kneaded eraser around my finger, and I'm just gonna tap, tap, tap along value 3 over the whole square so that it's not leaving me like a line that I erased through. And now I can just kind of go back through and perfect if I erased it from any patches that I didn't mean to. I squint my eyes, I see it's just a touch too dark still, so I'm gonna tap, tap, tap until that is matching the value above. Squint your eyes and check, and you can see if it is matching or if it's too dark. Now, once we've finished values 1 through 3, we are going to go in for values 10 through 6. Okay, now we're gonna start with our darkest value with number 10. We're gonna come in and we're gonna give ourselves borders. So go ahead and do this with me. And we're gonna blow away our dust so we can see if we actually did get all the way to the outside edge. Usually there's a couple of spots that you might have missed. So make sure that you go back through in those borders and make sure it's nice and crisp. And once you've done that with the borders, you're gonna fill the entire space to be solid black. And you don't have to press super hard. That will occasionally break the pencil lead because charcoal is quite fragile. So make sure that you're not pressing with too much pressure, and then blow away your dust to see if it is all filled in. And if you've got some white spots left behind, just go in and refill those spaces. Now we are going to hop all the way to value 6, and this is going to be the lightest that we can color with this pencil. Sometimes I'll hop down to my blending stump area and I'll like draw really with a lot of pressure on one side to give myself a flat patch of my pencil. And then I can use that flat patch to help me not draw like lines when we're trying to draw lightly. That is a problem that many people experience, is that drawing lines when you're trying to draw your lightest patch is very, very common. So it's helpful to give yourself that little edge with just drawing on one side of your pencil to help fill this in to be the lightest you can color and as even as you can make it with no lines showing up. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna bridge the gap. We're gonna go in between values 10 through 6, and we wanna make them slowly get lighter and lighter and lighter as we reach to this value. Now, I am going to come in for value 7 next, and I am just gonna go through, and I'm using like small ovals essentially, and I am just pressing a tiny bit harder with my pressure on my pencil so that it looks just a little bit darker. Now I'm gonna continue doing that, so I'm gonna hop over to value 8, and I want it to look a little bit darker than it did for value 7. I'm using my small little ovals, and then I'm gonna hop over to value 9, and I'm making this just a little bit lighter than solid black. So I'm just making sure I don't fill all of those little grains. We want some of that white to show through. Now I'm going to squint my eyes and see if they look too similar. To me, my 9 and 8 look too similar. So you can take a look up at the board and you can look at mine and now squint your eyes and see that these two are exactly the same. So I need to come in and darken the one next to it to show that they are different values. Now we are going to blow away our dust. Make sure that you've got a nice, good transition. So take your time, go in and fill those borders. Sorry, got a little bit of a cold. Now, we are just continuing to make those as perfect of a transition as we can, all the way out to the lightest patchwork we could do with this pencil. Now, we're gonna set our pencils down. I want you to watch this part. Okay, we are going to take our blending stump and we're gonna blend out just value 6. We're gonna blend out value 6, and I wanna just check with my eyes. I'm squinting, putting my lashes in front of them to see if that value matches or if it's patchy. And now I'm gonna use my blending stump to take that value out into value 5. And you may need to collect a little bit more if this isn't quite dark enough, so you can hop into value 7 and grab a little bit. Just make sure you don't go too dark too quickly. Make sure that you're not getting dark patches as well. So I'm going over the top of my blending stump layer quite heavily. I'm using a lot of pressure here. And now we just have number 4 to fill to bridge the gap. And I'm just adding in value 4 with only my blending stump. So values 5 through 1 are blending stump exclusive. Now I can look in this area and we want to perfect our light side before we continue into blending out our dark side. So I am going to go through and I am just looking at each of these. I'm putting my lashes in front of my eyes. I know it seems a little bit silly, but it really is the way that I check my artwork, and I think it is one of the best ways to do it quickly. So you also have another method of checking, which is to use your value matcher tool so you can see if you are matching the values correctly. Now, we are going to continue on to our dark end. We're going to start with value 7, and it's important that we blend these values one at a time and then move backwards. Because if we start on value 10 and then come forward, we're gonna have way too dark of values because it's gonna have way too much charcoal on our blending stump. Now we're gonna continue into value 8. And we're just using small little circles, and you'll notice that it's actually making these a touch lighter. Blow away your dust and you can kind of see that as we go over the top of our darker values with our blending stump, it kind of lightens it. And it's because it's smudging it around and sort of stealing some of that value and putting it on our blending stump rather than on our paper. And for that reason, after you have blended your darkest values like 9, 8, and 7, we are going to come back now. We're going to add just another little patch filling layer to make sure that they are dark enough after our blending stump layer, to make sure that we don't have any lines or spots that are lighter or darker than they're meant to be. And now we'll do one last layer with our blending stump. And I am going to take my blending stump now and I'm going to clean it off. So go ahead and do that with me. We're going to take it into our blending stump cleaning area. I'm just twisting it around. And now I can kind of go through my whole value scale and just perfect. So let's go through and perfect, guys. We're making this perfect. So we're going through and just looking for any patches. Now, this will take you a little bit of time, and if you're not quite finished, that's okay, but I would like for you to still try to follow along with me for these next few steps, and if at the end you need to go back and finish things, that's perfectly fine. So we're going to continue on to our sliding scale, and we're going to begin in the same way that we did with our value scale above the stepped scale. We're going to start on the light side, and we're going to clean off our blending stump in this cleaning area. You also have the option to use this sanding tool that can remove it quickly, but make sure that you're keeping the shape what we want, which you have to hold it at an angle to make that stay nice and pointy. Now, you can also just continue to clean it, but we are going to come into value 1 with our blending stump, and I am just adding a nice light layer here, and I'm going to press a little bit harder for my value 2. And I'm just pressing harder and kind of like twisting my blending stump around to get more of that value to show up. And I think that's probably a little dark, so I'll probably need to come back in and erase, but that's okay. Now I'm going to continue just twisting my blending stump and using the charcoal that's been left behind to help me fill in values 1 through 3. Now, looking at my light transition, I think I probably need to come in and erase a little bit to help this have a nice smooth transition. So see how if I look up above, and I want you to do this with me, look at this compared to this. That doesn't match. So what I need to do is I'm going to come in with my kneaded eraser and I'm going to stretch it out so I've got a nice big flat spot, and I'm going to use that flat spot to just kind of lift up on the spots where I want it to be lighter. So I'm just tapping on those areas where I want it to be a little bit lighter. And I can like kind of do a little swiping motion too. And we want to like try to focus on the patches that might be a little bit darker. So if you've got some patches, you can really focus on like eliminating those patches to make it match the rest of the space. And then one last pass with our blending stump. Let's go through one more time to help make sure that it's as smooth as possible and that our values match. All right, and a nice smooth transition out to white. So you should not see an abrupt line or edge at the end of value 1. Now, we are gonna continue on our dark side and we're going to do values 10 through 6. All right, so we're gonna come in, and I like to still start on the darkest side, giving myself that value 10 first. So let's go ahead and do that together. We are filling in our border first. Blow away your dust. you can see if you've got any little white spots left behind. Now we're gonna fill in the interior of that box, and I'm just using the side angle of my pencil too, so that it gives me a nice flat spot to work with for my remaining values. Let's blow away our dust. Couple more spots to fill so that it's super solid. And now I'm going to come in for values 9 through 6, and I'm just going to use the same spacing as what's above. I'm just slowly pressing lighter and lighter for each section. So I'm barely pressing any lighter for value 9. We've just got some white spots showing through. Now for value 8, I'm pressing a little bit lighter, and I'm using the side edge of my charcoal because it doesn't give me the lines that you sometimes get if you use the point. Now 6 is going to be the very lightest that I can color with my charcoal pencil. And I want it to be nice and even, so don't miss those borders when you're filling with your pencil. Now I'm gonna go back through with my pencil, and I'm looking to see if this is a nice smooth value scale. So let's put our eyelashes in front of our eyes, okay? And that tells me right here is a little bit of a jump. So I'm gonna come in and just add a little patch line work, like right in that space, and I'm gonna do it again. I'm squinting my eyes, and that looks a little better. So check yours, and let's switch to our blending stump. We're gonna come in with our blending stump, and we're gonna do value 6 first. And while we have this charcoal on our blending stump, I'm gonna take that over here and try to fill values 4 and 5. Now it didn't get me very far because I didn't have a whole lot on there quite yet, but it's better to start off lighter than you think you need than to accidentally go too dark. Now, I am using just light circles to fill in, and I'm just kind of pulling from value 6 to stretch all the way out to where we were working originally with value 3. Now, if you need to collect more, you can go back into value 7, just a little bit farther back, and then use some of that charcoal to help perfect and make these nice smooth transitions. So we're just kind of filling any light patches that we might have to help it look nice and even and smooth. We're working our way back towards that dark, and you'll notice, especially on values 8 and 9, that when we come in with our blending stump, it's actually making it lighter because we're stealing some of that value. That means we especially do not want to touch value 10 with our blending stump, because that means it's going to make it no longer a 10, and we already filled it all the way, so there's no reason to blend it. Let's go ahead and blow away our dust. And remember that because we go in with our blending stump, we need to come back through with our charcoal pencil as our last little layer to darken up any of those spaces that did get a touch lighter from our blending stump layer. So we're just doing a little bit of perfecting here, a little bit of patch filling, and only on the dark side. We don't want to go out into the light with the pencil. Now I'm just using my blending stump to help fill in and smooth out. So take a moment and work on perfecting yours. All right. Now, even if you're not quite finished with your value scale, I do still want you to pause, and we are all together going to switch to working on the sphere. So let's go ahead and switch together. What I want you to notice is that there is a circular highlight near the top left, and then kind of a crescent moon shape, or like what's like a C that gets pointy on the ends with the shadow. Now, we'll begin the same way that we did with our value scales. I'm going to clean off my blending stump so that I can work on my light values without going too dark. And I'm going to just draw very lightly, and with the side of my blending stump and using like little circular motions, I'm drawing in that little circle right in the middle, or top left corner of this sphere. So I'm adding in another light circle. Now this is going to be saved for the area that's going to be white. So I'm going to do a little pass with my finger around that circle to help it fade out even smoother. And now that we've got that nice fade out, I'm going to come in with my blending stump and I'm going to just start getting darker for my next pass. So we want to leave that nice light layer, and then as we work out, we're pressing harder with our blending stump. Now, I find it easier to draw on top of a layer of charcoal than to draw on top of printer paper, which is kind of strange, but I am going to take my value all the way out to the edge, just so that I don't end up with any abrupt edges that I need to fix after we come in for our dark layer. So we're just kind of filling this with a medium tone all the way through, and we want to have a nice fade out with our light values all the way out to that white circle. You are welcome to use your kneaded eraser if you want to come in and erase back out that circle if you went too far in, and then use a blending stump pass to just kind of go once more around that circle to help it fade out to white so smoothly. All right, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna come in to add the black and our values 10 through 6. So we are going to come in now, and I want you to notice on our example, the black reaches all the way from here to here. So I am going to give myself that little mark. I want you to do the same. We're gonna give ourselves a mark near the top of that highlight circle and a mark near the bottom of that highlight circle. Now we're going to take our black charcoal pencil, and I might even just sharpen this a smidge, and you can do this with me, or if you can just find a good point, that's great. But sometimes having a nice sharp edge to go through and do these little lines where we want them to be nice and crisp makes a really big difference. Now, I am right-handed, so to help me make this curve even better, I'm going to continuously turn my paper so that it matches the natural arch of my hand. So I'm gonna just keep turning this paper, and I keep drawing that little kind of curve that my hand naturally does until I reach this point. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to continue using my value to fade out, but we wanna keep it nice and pointy at the ends of our little crescent moon here. And then we wanna fade out and get kind of thicker in the middle and then fade back to a little point at the top and bottom. So we're just coming in and adding a nice value scale. So we want to go from dark to medium to the lightest that we can draw with our pencil. We want to be careful not to go too far out because we want to have a nice transition out to the light circle that we've already created. So we're just trying to bridge the gap all the way up there. So let's fade this all the way out as smoothly as we can. All right. Now you do a little perfecting, blow away your dust. And we're gonna begin by cleaning off our blending stump. Make sure you don't have too much on there. And now we're gonna go around on this lighter edge all the way around our circle highlight. So we're kind of bringing that medium tone up into this space. So I'm just bringing that medium tone all the way around. We want to make sure, and I'm going to clean off my blending stump because I've got an edge that I want to fade out to get light really quickly. And to do that, I just clean off my blending stump and go over that line. Now I'm going to do my next pass, and this is going to be getting darker as we work our way out. So I want to be careful not to go too far out with my marks into my light space because it'll bring the dark out where I don't want it. We want to have the nice transition, so if you need to clean off your blending stump, go in your blending cleaning area, wipe off some of the excess, and then you should be able to help these smoothly blend together. And our last pass is just going around for that dark shadow side. Now, we're gonna do one more layer because remember that it does steal our black when we blend it with our blending stump. So I'm adding in my black on this outside edge just a little bit darker, and I'm bringing it up to a point. And I'll blend that out one last time with my blending stump. And our last step for the sphere is to come in and we're gonna add the shadow underneath. And it's very, very dark black, the number 10, underneath the sphere itself. and then it just kind of fades out, and I'm gonna fade out to the lightest I can color, like my number 6. We just barely reach the outside edge of the little outline here. Now we're gonna clean off our blending stump, and I'm gonna blow away my dust. We're gonna blend our light area first, so I'm going around the edge of that little oval. I'm gonna clean off my blending stump and do one pass around it so it has like a soft fade. So I'm not touching that solid black yet. Cleaning off my blending stump so I can help it fade out. And the last part we're gonna do is come in and just blend up to where it's solid black, but remember, we don't need to touch areas that we want to stay solid black because it'll just make them lighter. So we're just gonna go right up to the edge of where it's solid black and then stop. All right. Now, I know we went a little quick and this is just your first attempt. So if you need more time for any of these parts, you can just pick up where you left off and continue. And you're welcome to rewatch this video if you need a little extra help. But great job so far. Remember, this is just your starting point and you're just gonna keep on getting better so that you can make amazing things with charcoal. Thanks for watching.